Oftentimes, if you're in a relationship long enough with a person and you've had enough experience together, you can almost anticipate when they're going to go left. You've seen them dance enough times where you can almost anticipate they're going to go left, and then you go right. It's this dance. But then sometimes we, may make some assumptions and think they're going to go left, and we go right, they went left. They did something we didn't expect and step on our toe, But then when someone gets their toe smashed in the process, how do you deal with that toe that just got smashed? Do we argue for a couple days, then make up? Maybe we go to our separate corners and not communicate? What's our process? What's our process for working together? What's our process for resolving conflict? What's our process for celebrating achievement? What's our process for validating one another? What kind of process do we use to love each other? What does that look like? We actually can observe this playing out in our own lives, and we certainly can observe it in the lives of others. But that process is critical because while there may be a very strong connection and bonded relationship, this relationship could be sustaining a high level of injury because the process just causes so much collision. And if we're able to refine and to improve the process, then we may have a better opportunity for ensuring more positive outcomes. So what do we do? How do we handle achievement in a relationship? What does it look like? Let's go back to the family. What does it look like when a child brings a report card home that is a report card that illustrates a very, very high level of academic performance? How do we, as a family, what's our process?
Praise.
That's one. And that praise could look, we praise people in different ways. Could be a hug. Could just be, I'm proud of you. Could be some sort of tangible reward. Could be that. Another process could be, that's what you're supposed to do. So may, just be you met the standard expectation of this family. And so that's our process here. What's the process when we are not at our best self? How do we handle that in our relationships when we fall short of the standard? What do we do? Now, there's no right or wrong answer to these questions. The real purposeful destination that we're seeking is to make a determination, does this work for you? Whatever it is. I ask that question often. Okay? So this is what's happening, this is what you're doing, and this is why. Is it working? Are you happy? Are you producing the kind of outcomes for yourself and your family that you ultimately want? If the answer is yes, then there's certainly some incentive to continue down that path. However, if the answer is no, it may be an indicator that it's time to change. Seek some alternative options. Now, changing direction and making those adaptations and adjustments are much easier when the relationship is strong, when there's trust and there's connection. However, if there becomes some severing and some decomposition and some breakdown, then it's going to be more difficult to make adaptations to process. We should be aware of that. What's your thoughts? Yes, sir.
I think it makes sense. And it just really highlights the significance and importance of us as humans being able to establish and maintain, sustain healthy relationships. Because at the point that you have that healthy relationship, you're able to make modifications to your process. The relationship is strong enough to endure the growing pains of any modification to your process. But if not, it's almost like it could essentially destroy the relationship.
It can. It can. And we see what that destruction looks like on a daily basis. We see it. And that's why it's important to try to get in as early as we can with these, with these skills. Yes, Shanae.
I seen a show, I think it was like Genius Kids,
Mm-hmm.
and one young man, it was, I think between the ages, I guess they went up to 15, 14, something like that. But one young man, he kept on winning. He was the first person. And every time he won, his family would tell him how he could have done better. He was the first person. He was always getting first prize, but the family would say, well, if you wasn't looking at those video games, you wouldn't have got that one answer wrong. And he started resenting his mom. It was mainly his mother, but he started resenting his mom. So he would play video games longer, and she would continuously tell him how he just could have done better in the process because he wasn't, I guess, meeting her needs more than meeting his own.
And that's real. That's a very good example. And what I like to embrace is that we all are doing the best we can with what we have. And if we start there, then we can observe a parent in that kind of process, in that parenting process, and reflect to her what you just articulated, and give her an opportunity to make a determination if it's working. I'm doing that all the time with my teenage son because there's really no definitive way to do it. We're just figuring it out as we go. But if we have the capacity to adapt and make modifications in the process, we probably have a greater probability of success. And so that's what reflecting the process is all about, helping people become aware of where they are in process and facilitating the relationships in their life. The next one is, yes, sir.
Now, my question is, what if you're observing a parent engaging in a process of parenting, and it may not be the most healthy process? Like, for example, what if they're using a high end of physical discipline? Now I know, we're supposed to be objective and utilize our mirrors.
Yeah, I get it. So there are, because we're professionals and we are required as professionals to report abuse, physical, verbal, or neglect, there's some limits to what we can observe.
It's not there.
Okay,
It's
so
not
it sounded
there.
like, okay, it
No, it's
sounded
not
like,
there.
okay.
Yeah, they're not like using like extension cords and whelps and stuff. That it's
Okay,
not that.
okay,
It might
okay.
just be a little pop upside the head, something like that. But I mean, you know,
Well, yeah, again, I mean, a pop upside the head, technically,
technically, yeah,
should be reported.
yeah.
Now, but the real, I mean, I get the essence of what you're asking. What happens when the process that we're observing is such that it makes us extremely uncomfortable and very concerned about what kind of damaging effects this could potentially have on the young person or on the
Is it okay to
relationship?
share an alternative?
It's always okay to share an alternative. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
It's always okay to share an alternative. But just like any master technician, there's a whole range of tools that you have available to you. A whole range of tools, yes.
What if that's the only process that works, and that successfully gets the message
Popping them upside his head.
through? Yes.
Just making sure.
Again, that's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope to normalize. And getting the message through. So I want to come back to getting the message through. Don't let me forget
Okay.
about that, because I do want to continue with the point I wanted to make on the very pertinent dynamic that you raised. Any master, technician, tradesman, practitioner will have a broad range of tools available to them in their process of addressing situations, circumstances, bringing solutions and fixes to situations, broad range. When you look at a plumber's tool, because you have not been trained as a plumber, they're just tools. You don't know the difference between this wrench and that wrench. That plumber could walk down your basement, it could be a leaking pipe, they could just stand there and look around and assess all the dynamics, and everything that they've assessed, they know it's this screwdriver that I need. It's not like they couldn't use this screwdriver, but based on their observation, they know it's this screwdriver. But the entire range of tools are available to that practitioner. They can use whatever they want. So the real question is, when you're in the presence of a person, a family who's in need of assistance, and you're hearing them and you're observing them, you will have to make the determination, should I be directive in this process or should I be reflective in this process? They're both tools that you have available to you. You just need to know the implications of the utilization of each of those tools. What are the implications of being directive? What implications come with being directive with your clients? You would go.
I think that's a great point, and I think at the point that you're making that determination, you would also want to assess the relationship that you have with these individuals in this family.
That's a very important thing to assess prior to grabbing that tool.
The relationship.
Absolutely. Some people are directive for the sake of being directive. Some people are directive because you have to understand that. When you are directive, you are the authority in the exchange. You have to know that. You're the authority in the exchange when you're being direct. Yes.
I just thought, when you said you're the authority, I think that the person that's receiving that needs to identify you as the authority. Being directive, I feel like, if you're using that directive approach, then you are
asserting yourself as the authority.
Yes.
But in order for it to be effective, the person that's receiving it has to be accepting of you as that role as well. Does that make sense?
Well,
What
it
I'm saying,
does,
like-
but I want to offer this to you. There is possible to have two authoritative figures in exchange with one another. That becomes a power struggle. So you've taken the authoritative position, they reject your authority, and they respond from an authoritative position. And you reject that authority, and you respond. What does that dance look like?
Fight.
Not effective, clearly. But the reason why I said that was back to what you were saying in terms of using that directive approach and having that relationship.
Mhm.
You may not be as effective using a directive approach unless that person is accepting of you in that authoritative role in that moment to use that directive approach. That's kind of what I was trying to
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what path does that lead you down in the ultimate goal of self-actualization and independence? Because some people are comfortable with granting authority to others in their lives to give them direction. And because they've set their life up that way, they don't have a lot of experience with taking that authoritative position and being self-directive. So you just have to monitor the level of frequency and intensity by which you're utilizing directive intervention. Because directive intervention may be good in the earlier stages because we're trying to help this person strengthen their authoritative muscles. And while they're developing that, I will be spotting them at the bar. But I won't always be there. I will be stepping myself out. And at the point I make that transition, I may move from being directive to reflective. So you want me to tell you what to do in that situation. That's a reflection. That's a shift. Now, in order to make that shift, it can be very uncomfortable for you because what you're doing now is empowering this person to make a choice, and you may not have the highest confidence that they're going to choose right. You're afraid of them hurting themselves or someone else. So you may, I don't know if I want to let go. What are your thoughts?
To a certain extent, if the relationship is not there, then
Mhm.
isn't the process going to be like null and void, depending on whether or not
Say
they're
some
gonna?
more. Say some more.
So say, for instance, if there's no relationship, there's no foundation of a relationship, if you're working on helping a client with something or helping an individual or trying to bring something to their attention, the process won't matter because there's no relationship in my mind.
That could be true. That could be true. That could be true to degrees. But this is what I want to help us understand. And this is going to sound a little different. There's always a relationship. The question is, what's the nature of your relationship with this client? There's always a relationship. Your relationship may just be this person is not giving me permission to help them.
Right.
It's a relationship. The nature of the relationship is that they just don't deal with you like that.
Exactly.
I think it's more advantageous for us to look at that
Yeah.
than to conclude we just don't have a relationship.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by no relationship. It's like that technically, you have a relationship with everyone in some form. But the nature of that relationship, if it's no real like, if I don't mess with you like that, then you probably shouldn't come to me with a process about one thing or another. That's all.
Or if you don't mess with me like that, I probably should be looking at what I'm doing and trying to perfect my swing and developing therapeutic connection. Because it may be some work for me.
But at the point that you've been able to identify that this person isn't as receptive to you, but again, like he said, that is the relationship. And one of the good things about that is you have a baseline. You have a baseline to work from. So